Now, I'm Harris Faulkner. The FBI has begun its probe into the Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh interviewing his second accuser from Yale University. This amid accusations from Democrats. The White House is trying to limit the scope of that investigation, which President Trump denies. The president was going back and forth with reporters at a White House ceremony. You watched it unfold in the last few minutes here. It was all about the announcement of a new NAFTA replacement, and then peppered by reporters with questions about Judge Kavanaugh. Watch.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade?
You answered several questions.
Do you have
a
question on trade?
My question is on Judge Kavanaugh.
Okay, please, yes.
You said
please.
the FBI.
Give her the mic, please.
Can you promise?
You know what? You've really had enough.
Report?
Hey, you've had enough. Go ahead, please.
It started out with that historic trade deal that the president rolled out with members of those who had helped make it on the dais with him. The president said he would put no limits on what the FBI could seek, and says now that Judge Kavanaugh should sit down with the FBI if that is what they want.
I want the FBI. This is now their 7th investigation, so it's not like they're just starting. I want them to do a very comprehensive investigation. I think it's a good thing. Now, with that being said, I'd like it to go quickly. And the reason I'd like it to go quickly, very simple. It's so simple. Because it's unfair to him at this point. What his wife is going through, what his beautiful children are going through, is not describable.
White House correspondent Kevin Corke now live from the White House. The president taking a range of different topic questions today. It began, as I said, with the USMCA agreement, that huge historic landmark agreement on trade with Mexico and Canada. And then, Kevin?
Yeah, you're right. It started out, listen, the president wants to talk about trade, the USMCA. It's a very big deal. And yes, he had to sort of wind through the forest of questions about his relationship with Justin Trudeau, for example, as well as Brett Kavanaugh and even the wall. But clearly the president wanted to sort of drill down on trade, because that is, after all, what this was all about. Get out to the Rose Garden and let's talk about the fact that we have made this huge replacement for NAFTA. I thought, though, Harris, one of the more interesting exchanges had to do with his views of the press, with whom, of course, he has famously sparred, dating back to his days as a candidate. In fact, he likened his treatment by the Fourth Estate to that of his Supreme Court nominee, Judge Brett Kavanaugh.
I think the press has treated me unbelievably unfairly. In fact, when I won, I said, the good thing is now the press finally gets it. Now they'll finally treat me fairly. They got worse. But that's okay. I put up with it.
Well, that fair treatment, maybe not so much, according to the president. By the way, speaking of Judge Brett Kavanaugh, the president was asked today, Harris, if he is limiting the scope of the FBI investigation into a Supreme Court nominee, a 7th, by the way, FBI investigation. And he was also asked if he would instruct that man, White House counsel Don McGahn, to give the FBI a bit of a wide berth.
I have so instructed him, and I did it again over the weekend because I see the press was, I don't want to use the word in this case, misleading. It's a much more complex subject than anybody would understand and than most people understand. But essentially, I have done that. But I did also say within the bounds of what the Senate wants. We don't want to go on to use an expression often used by me, we don't want to go on a witch hunt.
Okay, so you've heard no witch hunt, you've heard no fishing expedition. You're going to hear things like that out of the White House all week long, but clearly the idea is the same. Focus on what the Senate has said, make the process happen quickly so that the senators can get a vote, Harris.
Kevin Corke, a lot to chew on now. That was over an hour that reporters were able to spend some time with the President of the United States. Thank you very much. Bringing in now former Utah Congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz, also the author of The Deep State. Jason, I'm looking at my notes here, and one of the things that the president wanted to drill down on was the fact that his trade agreement, I want to start there before it got combative, was something that even Democrats said they liked. In fact, I'm reading notes here from Senate Finance Committee ranking member Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon saying, NAFTA has long needed a serious overhaul. So the president's starting on good footing, but he said, watch out, the Democrats may change their tune.
Well, the reason Donald Trump became President Trump in large part was because he was able to attract centrist voters, Democrats, blue-collar people, in saying that the deal with NAFTA was unfairly weighted. For the president to pull this off, bring Mexico on board and then Canada is a huge win, literally a month before the midterm elections. It really does make a difference in people's lives, unlike some of these other sideshows.
And then the president opened it up to questions, all the media there in the Rose Garden, and it got, well, what we say in hockey is chippy. The president clearly ready in battle mode.
Well, no doubt. The president is at his finest, I think. My wife, Julie, and I were able to watch that. And I got to tell you, when the president fires back like that, people love it because I think they understand how unfair the media has been to this president, how unfair they've been to Kavanaugh. I think that interaction where he was kind of comparing himself, I think is very true. I think people are sick of it in the heartland. And they started asking him some silly questions. And I loved the way the president handled it.
So the president took questions about his nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh. And it was interesting because he leaned in. He said, don't treat him the way that you treat me. I'll take this, and I'm paraphrasing, the incoming on this, kind of give me what you've got. And he said, no, I support him. He's open to hearing from what the FBI investigation turns up, but he supports his nominee.
He does, and I think he'll ultimately become the next justice of the Supreme Court. It's too bad that on the 1st of October he couldn't sit with the other justices right at the beginning. The stated goal of this supposed, let's wait another week is because, the country's being torn apart. I think this extra week actually tears the country even further apart. I think the Democrats are overplaying their hand. The resistance movement, the scorched earth that they promised and they want, they're getting. But to have Jerry Nadler, the chairman, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, saying we're going to pursue him no matter what, I think it shows what the Democrats are really up to.
Let's hear from a man who really kind of twisted the conversation last week right back to where Republicans want to be, and that is about Brett Kavanaugh. Lindsey Graham had some very strong comments in the past few days, and now he's saying this about the Democrats' handling of the Kavanaugh hearings. Watch.
I hope Senator Grassley will do what I've suggested. Investigate the abuse here. Who leaked anonymous letters? Who referred Dr. Ford to a lawyer that was a political activist? Did anybody in the committee betray her trust by sending it to the media so the hearing would be delayed? Why did she not know that we were willing to go to California? How did that happen? Could her lawyers possibly have not told her that?
That one point about Dr. Ford not knowing that the senators themselves would go, because that was her question. What do you think about opening up that investigation and really taking a peek at what got us to the 11th hour?
Yeah, I do think the Senate investigators can quietly have those discussions with Ms. Ford. I also think that her attorneys are probably in jeopardy of having some referral to the Bar Association, whether or not they should be disbarred in their representation. I think those are fair questions. Based on what you see playing out in the press, it's worthy of the questions.
Formerly of the Oversight Committee, which you led, what would be the one thing that you would want to see happen at this point? Because, FBI investigations have a way of going far and wide, and the president's being criticized for trying to micromanage, particularly from Senator Blumenthal, which the president had some interesting comments about during his time with reporters today.
Well, I have the fundamental problem in that it's the Senate's job, not the executive branch and the FBI, to do their own investigation. Advice and consent, the Senate actually has more tools at their disposal. They can compel testimony. They can subpoena people. And what bothers me is that you had senators complaining that they needed more information and more time, yet when Judge Kavanaugh was sitting before him, they asked him no questions. And when Ms. Ford was there, afforded every opportunity to say everything that she wanted, there were very limited questions. And so how is it that you say you need more time? At the same time, the people that are responsible for this, you don't even ask them questions. I think it's a game. It's a ruse. I think people see through it. And at this point, people have got to vote. Go on the record, take a bold position, stop punting it, but actually step up and vote.
Yeah, speaking of voting, I want to talk about the politics.